Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Good Tuesday morning. It's 5:07. You're listening to O'Connor and Company on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. Thanks for letting us be a part of your morning. We've got a great show today. Big lineup. At 6:35, Cully Stimson, Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He'll talk about Judge Merchan's latest move to refuse to throw out Trump's New York nuisance lawsuit. At 7:05, Ian Pryor with America First Legal. He'll talk about a new investigation they've launched into Loudoun County, the Loudoun County School Board's connection to that infamous DOJ memo that was used to target and harass parents. At 7:35, Chuck Thies, D.C. political analyst. He'll give us an update on the efforts to expel D.C. Council member Trayon White. 8:05, Curtis Hoke on the latest CNN embarrassment. You're going to want to listen to that one. And at 8:35, Gordon Chang on the latest news out of China and North Korea. I'm Julie Gunlock, sitting in for Larry O'Connor. I just want to let everyone know he's coming back this week. He'll be back on Thursday. And I'm sitting alongside Hans von Spakovsky. Second day this week, Hans. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Thanks. Wait, you mean I'm going to have to give up this chair so Larry can go back and sit in it?
You guys can fight over it.
Yeah,
guys can fight over it. But honestly, I'm so glad you're here this morning because there's a lot of legal news, and your legal analysis has been so great. Also, your campaign analysis, of course, but a lot of legal news again in the news this morning. Trump plans to sue the Des Moines Register over that weird poll that came out right before the election. This was this sort of Ann Seltzer poll. I have to admit, I had never heard of Ann Seltzer, but she was basically described as the world's best pollster from the corporate media when this poll came out, because I think it put Kamala up 16 points in Iowa.
Yeah, it was insane. It was a huge number. It was bizarre. I mean, it's one thing. Look, depending on the pollster, you may have a couple of points difference, and we see that all the time. But this was a huge difference. You know, what was interesting to me was I actually said, well, Trump has filed suit. How has he done that? And very clever. They have filed suit under the Iowa's Consumer Protection Act. You know, that's the law that protects regular consumers. You know, if you go into a store to buy something, you know, Costco, someplace else, and whoever the manufacturer of the product, if they've engaged in deceptive advertising, of course, you can sue. So it's under the consumer fraud statutes. I've never seen one of those laws used like that.
It is interesting because we are consumers of the news.
Exactly.
That is fascinating,
isn't it? Like I said, it's very, very clever. I've never seen anybody try to use a consumer fraud statute, which, like I said, they're geared towards the kind of products we buy, like when we're Christmas shopping.
Sure.
But they're trying to use it in this, and they're saying that consumers in Iowa were defrauded, and that amounted to interference in the election. Like I said, it's very innovative.
It really is, and actually, that could have far-reaching consequences because if you do look at what these news sort of departments, what they produce, so much of it is fraudulent. And I mean, think about the Russia collusion hoax. Right. Think about the laptop. I mean, in some ways, that was sort of the reverse. That was keeping information from the American public. It was interesting. I saw an interview with Ann Seltzer, and she says, none of this. She said something about the poll itself, and saying that this wasn't fraudulent. So she's pushing back on this, but it's interesting because she could still have altered those results. So it'll be interesting in discovery, unless there's a settlement, to see internal emails about sort of the data she was getting back on how Iowans were planning on voting and if there was any altering of those results. Again, we could see a settlement because she would not want that discovered. correct?
Right. I mean, the first thing they'll do, what her lawyers will do, is they'll file a motion to dismiss the case. They'll
Sure.
say there's no, even under the facts asserted, there's no legal case here. If Trump's lawyers can survive that, that's when the judge says, okay, we have to set up a discovery schedule. And that's when those potential emails and communications could come out. So the initial reaction to the suit and what a judge does with it initially will be the key to what happens here.
It's very interesting because Ann Seltzer retired.
Right. Isn't that something?
She recently said, I'm done. I've retired. Which again, and I don't mean to, well, yes, I do, I guess. But it makes me think, gosh, maybe there's a little bit of nervousness about people digging around into how she came to these conclusions. Because again, for those who weren't maybe paying attention, this was a definite outlier. And it really did give hope to the Kamala camp.
Right. People
thought, maybe this really is going to go her way, given this poll. And then it turned out, it was the complete opposite.
Well, this mistake by her, whether it was intentional or not, rivals the biggest, most embarrassing mistake in polling history. I don't know. Have you seen the photo? There's a very famous photo of Harry Truman holding up, was it the Chicago Tribune newspaper? Because I think it was Gallup.
Yes.
Made this huge mistake saying that he was going to lose the election. The Chicago Tribune went with that, declaring in his headlines with an early edition that Truman had lost the election.
Yeah.
And that was a huge mistake in the polling business.
Yeah, and I think this is really going to be one to watch, but I am very excited about this innovative sort of strategy.
Yeah.
Look, this ruling from ABC News, $15 million paying to the Trump Library because George Stephanopoulos, plus a public apology, George Stephanopoulos defamed him by calling him what did he call him?
He called him he said the courts had
liable
found him
for
guilty
rape.
of rape.
Of rape.
When that wasn't true.
And he kept saying it. He kept saying it over and over again. And I think there's a lot of questions out there. Or yesterday, rather, I wonder if we're going to see a lot more lawsuits. And Trump talked about that yesterday. He plans to pursue these lawsuits with a number of publications for these smear tactics. And I think this is good. I think this has the potential to really change corporate media so they stop this kind of stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'm being Pollyanna-ish.
Well, no. In fact, $15 million is a small bite to a big company like ABC. But on the other hand, this should have a deterrent effect on other journalists thinking twice before they make claims that they haven't actually verified.
Yeah. Listen, we've got more lawsuits to talk about, but let's get over to Jamie Whitten.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
So, Hans, later today, Cully Stimson, your colleague over at Heritage Foundation, he'll be on with us at 6:35 to talk about this. But in additional legal news, Judge Mershon, this is the New York judge that was overseeing, you call it the nuisance lawsuit, right? The corporate media calls it the hush money lawsuit. We don't like to call it.
But it wasn't.
It wasn't. That's right. But the latest out of that case, Justice Mershon thwarted one of several attempts by Donald Trump. I'm reading, obviously, from an article here. To clear his record of 34 felonies before returning to the White House, the judge on Monday rejected Trump's argument that a recent Supreme Court ruling had nullified his criminal case in New York, upholding the former and future president's felony convictions. Hans, tell us about that Supreme Court ruling, because I'm confused. I didn't. Why is Judge Mershon? I thought the Supreme Court had said he has presidential protections.
Well, what the Supreme Court said is a president has immunity from criminal actions for his official acts. And so Merchant is claiming, oh, well, there were no official acts involved in this particular case. But if you look at the case actually in detail, which I did. I was really followed it closely. A lot of the actions that Bragg complained about, some of them occurred after he became president. And so the merchant hasn't done the kind of detailed analysis that he should do, and he won't. Merchant has got to be one of the most biased judges I think I've encountered in the years I've been doing a legal analysis. If 5 people came forward with absolute evidence showing that the president was absolutely innocent, Merchant would just dismiss their testimony. I mean, he's that biased.
Isn't Merchant's daughter some
she's a big consultant for Democrats, makes money from Democratic campaigns. Merchant violated the Judicial Ethics Code of New York by making a contribution to Joe Biden.
Good God.
That is absolutely barred, and yet he didn't remove himself from the case.
So prosecutors, and I assume Merchant has accepted this, are arguing that the Supreme Court's decision had no bearing on this prosecution.
That's right. Yeah. Look, this was a bogus case from the very start because the whole basis of it was, remember, they convicted him of supposedly falsifying his business records. Why? Because he didn't list this nuisance settlement as a campaign-related expense. Okay?
Right.
I served as a commissioner on the Federal Election Commission. That payment to this woman was not a campaign-related expense. And in fact, who's supposed to enforce campaign finance laws? The Federal Election Commission. They didn't initiate any action against Trump because they said this is not a campaign-related expense.
So what's the next step here? What happens next? So can Trump appeal?
His only remedy is appeal and getting an upper court to overturn Merchant. Because, like I said, Merchant is just biased from the bottom of the soles of his feet to the top of his head. He's not going to do any of the things he should do to dismiss this case.
So it's appealed, and then a higher court can then dismiss it? Totally.
Yes, and that's exactly what should happen. Not just because of these issues, but the mistakes and errors that this judge made throughout the case.
Sure.
It's just one long list.
One more question for you. You know, for instance, you watch the Daniel Penny case, and a lot of us are going, okay, well, people just can't get a fair trial in New York. I mean, you shouldn't live there, right? Like,
that's
just impossible.
Yes.
With Alvin Bragg, you're going to see these kinds of cases brought that are nonsense. So when Trump appeals this, what is that court like? What's the appellate court like? Is it also?
I don't trust the appellate courts to do the right thing either there. Now, I don't think they're as bad as Merchant, but look, if I was an entrepreneur and I was running a big business, first thing I would do in the new year is move my business out of New York, not just because of Alvin Bragg, but because of the Attorney General of the state.
So this could be appealed and appealed and appealed. It could end up in the Supreme Court again.
Yeah.
We've got much more to get to right now. It is 5:21. So we have some sad news. One of our sort of colleagues, I guess you would say, in the D.C. sort of think tank world, Lee Edwards, passed away. He was one of your colleagues.
Yeah, really sad. What a great guy. I was fortunate to be able to work for him for a while. A terrific historian and a leader of the movement to remember the victims of communism. Folks may not know this, but there's now a terrific museum in
it's wonderful,
Washington, called the Victims of Communism Museum. If you haven't been there, you should go see it.
Yeah,
it is quite something.
Was he involved in the creation?
Oh yeah, he was the person behind that.
My son's class took a field trip there, and I said, I know my kids are in the right place when a field trip to that museum is organized, because it is so important, especially with young people today who don't seem to have any concept of what happened during communism and the great tragedy of communism and the human death toll of
100 million victims between China, the Soviet Union. I mean, it's just unbelievable how many people have been killed. But he was the person behind that museum, great historian, wrote many, many books. And do you know what his first political job was?
What?
He was the press guy right out of college for the Barry Goldwater presidential campaign in 1964. That's how he started off. Can you believe that?
What a moment to have a conversation with him.
Yes.
To have heard all of that. You know, we've had some conversations this morning about some other people, some other colleagues that have passed on, Claudia Rosette. And this is, it's sad to see these folks.
Lee Edwards invited me to go with him to the 50th anniversary get-together of the folks who had worked on the Goldwater campaign.
Oh, wow.
It was one of the funnest evenings, and the stories they told about Barry Goldwater had everybody in the room laughing.
Well, Edwards and his wife, Anne, she assisted him in all his writings. They lived in Alexandria. They had 2 daughters and 11 grandchildren. Yeah. So rest in peace to Lee Edwards. Thanks for telling us about him. We will continue in just a minute. It is 5:29.
Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:36. Good Tuesday morning. You're listening to O'Connor and Company on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We're really glad you're letting us be a part of your morning. Got a great show today at 6:35. Cully Stimson, he's a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation, and he'll talk to us about Judge Merchan's recent refusal to throw out Trump's New York nuisance lawsuit. At 7:05, Ian Pryor with American First Legal. He'll talk to us about a new investigation they've launched into Loudoun County School Board's connection to that infamous DOJ memo that was used to target and harass American parents. At 7:35, Chuck Thies. He's a D.C. political analyst, and he'll give us an update on the efforts to expel D.C. Council member Trayon White. 8:05, Curtis Hoke on the latest CNN embarrassment. My gosh, it's a doozy. And at 8:35, Gordon Chang. He'll give us the latest news out of China and North Korea. I'm Julie Gunlock, sitting in for Larry O'Connor just for 2 more days, alongside Hans von Spakovsky. Good morning, Hans.
Good morning, Julie. Couldn't we have Curtis could be on every day with CNN's? It has so many embarrassments, right?
This one is. We've got other things to get to, but this involves a prisoner released from a jail in Syria, and it had all the drama that you would expect, but turns out it wasn't exactly that. So we'll get into it with Curtis. But you're right. Seems like they have daily embarrassments over there at CNN. So sadly, there was another school shooting yesterday, a 15-year-old female student. This is very unusual.
It is unusual. I think that's only like 5 or 10% of shootings.
The Nashville shooter was also a female, but she identified as trans. Right. Very troubled individual there. We don't know a lot about this latest shooting. Police said, this is heartbreaking, a second-grade student called 911 about the shooting at this private K-12 school. 3 people are dead after the shooting. The school is called Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. Again, it's a K-12 private Christian school. A teacher and a teenage student were killed, police said. Officials also said that the shooter was a 15-year-old female student at the school, enrolled in the school. 6 other people were injured. 2 students are in critical condition, and a teacher and 3 other students had non-life-threatening injuries. We do know who this girl was, Natalie Lynn Ruppnow. Pictures of her. There's a lot of rumors out there. Was she trans? Was she some radical feminist? There were some writings that were found from her, but they don't know yet. Again, this just happened yesterday afternoon.
Yeah. And look, the one thing I would tell folks is there's lots of information that always starts spreading and coming out when you have something like this, and initial reports so often are wrong, and people should not jump to any conclusions before there's been a real investigation done, and the information that's coming out, it's been verified. Well, it really pertains to her.
Yeah, and what I just read about the injuries and what happened in a second grader, that has all been verified. But as far as the mental condition of this girl.
Right. What motivated her?
What motivated her? We do not know. Of course, the White House jumped on this immediately, calling for gun control.
Yeah, but that is.
I know.
That is so silly. Guns are banned in schools all over the place.
It's a gun-free zone.
And was there any call like that coming out from liberals when the head of United Healthcare was killed?
None.
I don't think so.
How about the Trump administrations? You hear any calls for gun control after? The Trump assassinations. Any calls for gun control? No. But also, I want to get back to what you just said. This is a gun-free zone. This is a school. Right. Also, a 15-year-old is not allowed to walk around with a gun, bring a gun to school.
Right.
And so what law? Tell me what law we need to pass that would have prevented this.
There's no law that would have prevented this. These kind of shootings, they have nothing to do with the gun laws. They have everything to do with issues with a particular person. Everything from their mental state to their emotional state to sometimes it's cultural issues and the way they've been propagandized in various places.
I will tell you, the left and many people on TikTok, influencers, glorifying what that Luigi Mangione did to that healthcare CEO. I don't know what her motive was, but it has been disgusting listening to them glorify this kid, make him famous, drool over him, talk about his abs and how good looking it is. I mean, maybe we need to examine how the left and how some of these influencers reacted because, boy, he sure is getting a lot of love out there. That's not good for young people to see.
No, but it isn't. But on the other hand, they saw the violence, the arson, the looting that Antifa BLM burning cities and
no consequences.
That was applauded. That was applauded by all these leaders of the left, liberals, the Democratic Party. Yep. What are they supposed to learn from that?
Yeah, we'll talk more about this. It's 5:43. We're talking about this 15-year-old female student who was identified as the shooter at a school in Madison, Wisconsin. This was Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. We noted how odd it is that it was a female shooter. She's dead. She was shot on the scene. It is very strange that it was a female shooter. You mentioned that it's a very small percentage of in these incidents where it's a female. We don't really know her motive yet, and we don't want to speculate. Of course, the Biden President Biden came out. We noted earlier he didn't come out and call for gun control after the CEO was shot or after the Trump assassination attempts, but he did immediately come out and call for gun control. He issued a statement. Today, families in Madison, Wisconsin are grieving the loss of those who were killed and wounded at Abundant Life Christian School. It's shocking and unconscionable. We need Congress to act now. And then he goes on to talk about how Congress needs to, of course, engage in some sort of gun-grabbing legislation. I think it's important to remind everyone, he just pardoned his son for gun crimes.
Right. he did. Everyone should be just really angry over the fact that I can't think of anything more disgusting than the president and others immediately trying to take political advantage out of a horrible tragedy like this. That is what they are doing. They don't know the facts. They don't know the circumstances yet, and they immediately come out talking about gun control when we already have so many laws on the books, and one of them his own son violated, and he didn't think it was a big deal. He, in fact, actually, if you look at the statement about this, when he put a statement out about pardoning his son for this gun crime, he was saying, this was no big deal, and people aren't prosecuted for this. That was his attitude then.
Yes. And as we noted earlier, this shooting happened in a gun-free zone.
Yes.
This shooting was committed apparently by a 15-year-old girl. It's illegal for a 15-year-old to be using a gun. It's illegal to take a gun on school property,
right,
in a gun-free zone. I want to know what law would have changed this. If there is a criminal who is determined to commit a crime, they usually will do it. They'll figure out a way to do it. And we do put laws in place to protect innocent people, and people break laws. It is tragic, but it is the reality.
It is. And anyone who thinks that gun control laws somehow keep, for example, criminals from getting guns, that's just not the case. I mean, that doesn't work. And again, it is, I think, just terrible that they immediately try to take political advantage out of a tragedy in a place like Madison, where we're still trying to find exactly what happened, and the parents and families are grieving there, and they want to go into a political situation.
Yeah, exactly. I think I need to correct something. I said that she was shot. I assume she was shot by police. The shooter, this 15-year-old girl, but apparently it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and she died on the way en route to the hospital. The police raided the parents' home. They and apparently the neighbors that lived close to this girl, they were sort of, in their basements. There were a lot of flashbangs that went off in that neighborhood. But they have searched the home, and the parents are fully cooperating. So really a tragic situation.
Oh, and right before Christmas, too.
Yes, exactly. We'll have more on this. We'll keep up on this. Again, I think we're going to see another round of the White House calling for more gun control. It'll be, Congress playing around with this. But the bottom line is, again, this was a shooting in a gun-free zone by a young girl that it is illegal to have a gun. So again, I think it is frustrating for people, especially people who respect the Second Amendment, when they call for the same thing over and over again, and not really get to the root causes of these problems.
Yeah, maybe the left should think about not using such violent rhetoric and calling people fascists and Nazis and saying, "Oh, it's great when people we disagree with are killed." Yeah,
lionizing murderers of healthcare CEOs and attempted assassins. That is that might actually be a bigger problem. It is 5:53.